Welcome to Beyond Marketing, the podcast. I'm Mara Genovese. I'm the founder and CEO of MG Empower Global Integrated Market Agency. Today, guest the true culture shaper, Stacey, the brand director at Grind, the bold London-born coffee brand, redefining daily rituals with style, sustainability, and soul. Her career spanned from Condé Nast to Urban Outfitters, where she helped shape culture through storytelling and brand experience. Now, as Grind's brand director, she's bringing that same creative force to one of the UK's most exciting brands. So welcome to Beyond Marketing, the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
I think we've been trying for a few months to have this conversation.
Yes, to organize this. So I'm thrilled to be here.
I'm very happy that you're here. So welcome. So first of all, US to UK to Australia, back to UK. Tell me about your journey. Tell me about where are you from? How have you ended up in UK? Before we actually talk about marketing, I like to talk about, personal experience.
Of course. Yeah. So grew up in Philadelphia, lived there till I was 19. Then I moved to New York, lived in New York for 15 years. Ended up taking a job back in Philadelphia. So I moved back to Philly, which was amazing. And then actually while I was on a business trip at that job, which was at Urban Outfitters, I met a lovely Englishman in a lift in London.
Wow.
And decided, I really fancied him. So luckily, my current job at Urban Outfitters, they offered me the chance to move to London. So I came to London. And then ended up getting a new role in Australia. Then I moved back to the States. COVID happened. I was stuck in America, even though I was married to an Englishman.
He was here or he was with you in America?
He was in London. He was in London while I was in America. Yeah, so we did a long distance marriage for 2 years. Then I came back to London finally, and then ended up at Grind. So it's been a journey and lots of flight miles.
But it's a very exciting journey.
It is an exciting journey, for sure.
But tell me a little bit about your career, because as we're discussing prior the podcast started, so you work at Condé Nast, you work at Urban Outfitters fashion, but also BuzzFeed, which is a media company, and now working with Grind. Just tell me a little bit about like your career path and the journey, and how does it feel to be navigating for so many different industry, but having always the creative taking you with all this, career journey that you
totally so I think I always wanted to be a writer, so that was sort of always my like kind of core skill. So coming out of uni, I went to school in New York. Coming out of uni, I knew that I wanted to be a writer. So immediately, this was in 2005, so when magazines were still like the thing, right? So I very much wanted to work in magazines. So interviewed. I gave myself like 1 month to find a job, which is ridiculous, right? But I was like, I'm going to find a job in a month.
That's very ambitious, very determined.
Very ambitious. And I truly was like, I know everyone loves to say this, but I truly was the like $20 in my pocket, living on a mattress. Like, I have to figure this out. Interviewed for a bunch of gigs, made it to the final round, didn't get it, but then saw a job listing for an advertising assistant at Interview magazine. So I was like, surely that can't be that different from an editorial assistant. It's dramatically different, right? Dramatically different. But I got the gig, and that really started my entire career, right? Because joined as an advertising assistant, Interview magazine, founded by Andy Warhol, amazing cultural, magazine that has such a legacy. And very quickly, once I realized I could write, they were all about me working on marketing decks and concepts and, kind of consumer facing like advertorials, that sort of thing. So even though I was very junior, they were like keen to kind of use my talent, even though I had no expertise at that point. Right. So it ended up being probably the best thing for me, because I ended up then working in publishing, eventually landed at Condé Nast. And I worked on the kind of sales marketing side of things. And with that, I basically had to take on a new brand every single day. So even though I was working under the Glamour magazine umbrella, my job was to work on, integrated marketing campaigns for everyone from, tampons, right? Wow, to then having to work on Coca-Cola, to then having to work on, Fuse iced tea. So I did everything from like food and drink to women's products to I also worked on Revlon for a bit. So every single day I had to come up with a new interesting marketing pitch for a different brand, but all through this lens of Glamour magazine and working to reach, women between the age of like 25 and 45. So in that sense, it was sort of like working for this like advertising agency, right? Right.
And then do you think that's when your creative
kind of
side flourishing?
For sure. And also I think it's having to work on pitches versus just like, active business, right? Because like on the brand side, you come up with an idea, you make it happen. Whereas every single day I was having to come up with ideas that may not actually come to fruition. So I had to be a bit more bold in my thinking and sometimes, kind of offer things up and pitch things that we may not have the right budget for. And then when it would come in, I was kind of like, oh wow, I have $75,000, right, to make this campaign happen that maybe needs 150. And it taught me to be really creative with budget and with the people that I work with and who do I bring in and how do I make buzz about something that needs to be much bigger than what the budget calls for.
So you're learning how to pitch in a very early age.
Oh yeah,
right?
very, very early age, for sure.
Because pitch something that I always say is not for everyone. Because you can be very good on creating the strategy and be very creative on putting together a storytelling narrative. But one thing is you do that. Another thing you go in front of the client and pitch.
And pitch it, right? And bring them on board, right? And I think learning to pitch is incredibly powerful for your career, like even if you don't work in sales, right? Because every interview is pitching yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think pitch is just like, even if it's, as you said, it's not part of the day-to-day job, it's such an important...
It's a life skill.
It's a life skill because at the end of the day, we always pitching ourselves regardless 100%. If it's not just a professional...
Totally.
It's just like it's just, and it gives you the confidence. I think it's just as more as you do it, more confident you become.
Totally. And exposure therapy.
Yes, exactly.
Exposure therapy
because
to
you
know.
Have to face your demons. Let's say, you know what I mean. Like you have to face your insecurity to actually go out there and pitch.
100%.
Exciting. And then but then like, how long that career journey on? Yeah, you stay at Glamour Condé Nast.
Yeah. So I worked at Glamour at Condé Nast. I also worked at Epicurious, so kind of worked in food and drink space while I was at Condé as well. And then ended up moving more into digital media. So I worked at BuzzFeed for a bit, and this was when cat listicles were like blowing up. This was when I don't know if you remember the blue dress.
Yeah.
There was like is it blue? Is it? I think it was like yellow. That was when I was there.
It was just like
it was a moment.
It was a moment.
And also all the traffic was coming through Facebook, right? And then now you think like the world is completely different in terms of like how you get people to read and consume content. So it was like a really amazing time to be there for sure. But I knew at that point, I'd been in media for 10 years and I knew eventually I wanted to get brand side. And it's actually quite hard to make that transition, because people want someone who has brand experience, right? So I applied for a job at Urban Outfitters. It was actually a bit more junior than where I was at, because at BuzzFeed, I was the director of ad marketing and product innovation. And the role at Urban Outfitters was initially senior marketing manager. So it was a step down, but I was like, I want this gig. And luckily, the woman who ended up being my boss, like kind of took a chance on me and like, at the interview was like, okay, I can see that she's creative. I think she can do this. So I joined. And on my first day, I said to the girl who reported into me, I was like, what's a buyer? Like I didn't know anything really about
that. I love that. That's the best story.
Yeah. You're like, what is this? And she's looking at me like, you're my boss. Oh my God. But then very quickly, I think within a year, I got promoted to global creative marketing director, and then ended up taking on not only the American brand marketing, but also the UK brand marketing. So it was one of the best moves I ever made, but it definitely was scary at first because I was like, I'm stepping down. Also, I had to move to Philadelphia. I had to move back. So I left my home for 15 years. But it was the best move I could have made because that's what set me back on, I guess the right trajectory, the brand trajectory that I wanted to be on.
What I would say is the differentiation from coming from, a public media to brand.
Oh my gosh. I mean, well, first of all, I think it was almost easier, right? Because like I said, I was so used to working on different brands, different clients every single day, right? And because I was doing so many pitches, while it was terrific experience, I wasn't necessarily getting the joy of then making it happen and bringing it to life, right? I didn't have this portfolio that I could share of like, look at all the cool things I did. Instead, it was like, I have 75 decks of awesome ideas, right? Whereas brand side, side, it's like, if you and your team come up with a great idea, you're going to make it happen. So suddenly it went from just pitching really cool ideas to like, oh, hey, we're going to do this mini festival at South by Southwest in the back lot of the Urban Outfitters store and have all these amazing artists and do these incredible activations. And you're actually on the ground doing the work. And that was amazing. And not to mention, you're able to then look at like the actual sales and impact it has on the brand and on the entire company. And, I still was amazed. And to this day, I'm so amazed when I walk down the street and I see an Urban Outfitters in a random city, like I would go to a random city in Georgia and be like, oh my God, there's an Urban Outfitters, and see like copy on posters that I'd written. And that was mind blowing to me. So I found it a lot more creatively fulfilling moving to brand side. Yeah.
And it's interesting because, like, as you said, you're from US, but you lived in Australia for how long did you live in Australia?
Yeah. So Australia, not very long. So I moved to Australia for a job at Mecca Beauty, which is essentially like the Sephora. It's like the Sephora of Australia, right? And that was, I don't want to say it was the biggest mistake of my career, but it definitely was the biggest challenge of my career, and that I moved myself to the other end of the world.
End of the
world, and it just wasn't the right fit for me. It wasn't the right fit. Me and the CEO got on fantastically. I interviewed for almost a year. It was a really long process to get the gig, and I think probably within the first month I knew it just wasn't going to work for me. It wasn't the right fit. And the biggest thing that I think people don't think about, especially someone like me, I'm a big risk taker. I'm like, let's do it. I'm like, let's go. And I think what you don't think about is like, when you relocate to another country for work, for a job, they're not paying to relocate you out if it doesn't work out. It doesn't work out. So that was a huge, I think, lesson for me in terms of like, sometimes your risks don't pay off, but I got back on my feet, probably 3 months after I left, because I think I was there for like 8 or 9 months. And it all worked out, but it was hard. It was hard having to like tell the entire world I'm moving to Australia for this amazing gig. And then be like, I didn't like it and I'm coming home, and that's hard, but it's anything.
Life experience.
It's life experience.
And then I think it's just like every challenge is just here to teach us something.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, yes. And then I think there's no kind of like, as you said, like I have to tell everyone, oh, I'm coming back. So it's just like, it's life, or sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, and we cannot be ashamed of it. We just need to face, and then everything in the end of the day is learning to 100%. Make us evolve. And then probably maybe we'll not be here if we haven't had that experience in Australia, right?
No, it's so true. And actually it's so funny. That was like 5 years ago, right? And just a couple months ago, I actually hired a designer from Mecca who had moved to London and was looking for a job, and she's an amazing talent. And I hired her on the team at Grind, right? So it's like
there's always a purpose.
There's always a purpose.
There's always a purpose. And now it's just like it's amazing that like you have like from Philadelphia, and then you lived in New York as well.
Yeah, I lived in New York.
Had your time in Australia. Now you're in UK, and then different roles and different type of service, but also linkage to creative. It's incredible because probably you already now have the amazing understanding about how can you apply cultural relevance when you are creating your marketing ideas vision for green, right? Because nowadays we talk a lot about, because social media has changed.
Oh my God!
We market our products,
like I was talking
right?
About Facebook and cat listicles,
exactly.
Right?
So do you remember Orkut, or it's just me? Sometimes when I talk about Orkut, no one knows
what was
it.
Orkut?
Orkut is like, it was before Facebook.
Oh, I remember MySpace. I had a MySpace account.
I had a MySpace too, but Orkut is even before MySpace.
Oh my God,
I feel so old.
Okay.
But yeah, so social media has been changing the way we communicate, the way we engage with community. But for marketing, it's more and more impactful, and then it's kind of like I feel like we have to evolve every single week.
Oh, every week, 100%.
It's just like there's no more like, okay, what is our plan for the next 6 months? No, it's what our plan for next week. What is actually working now?
Which I thrive in that environment. Like it actually works out really well for me because I've never been someone who's good at looking at like the year ahead, And of course you have to do that with product development and manufacturing products, which we do at Grind. But I love that every every week it potentially could change, and it keeps me excited. It's what keeps me in the role, right?
The other day I said to my team, it's just like, oh, but what about next week? It's like, you know what? My mindset is like 48 hours is the maximum. It's just like, it's like, what are we going to do in 48 hours? Because a week is just quite, it can be stretched a little bit.
100%.
But like, yes, because like culture relevance, being creative, being a storyteller as you are. And then you're saying that you're a writer, which helps a lot when it comes to creative. So tell me about Greeny, because it's become a part of the culture of London, right? So
yeah. I mean, I have to say that, like, you know, grind is not. Of course, I would say not all coffee brands are created equally. But I think my experience and expertise, I think, is very well suited for grind, because grind in itself has never kind of walked you know, a very narrow line in terms of who they are as a brand, right? So it was never just about coffee, and it was always about creating an experience. So even when they launched in, you know, 2011, they were just a shortage cafe, right? And it wasn't just coffee, it was coffee by day, cocktails by night,
right.
You know, bringing DJs in, creating like something that was sort of an all day third space for people in East London to come and hang out. And then it, you know, it evolved rapidly. You know, it became sort of a hospitality group with multiple cafes and coffee shops and coffee trucks. And then, you know, 2019, when right before COVID started, they launched into home compostable pods, and sustainability became a real brand pillar. And that obviously with COVID became a massive you know, product line for them, right? So now we're not just the restaurants, the cafes, the coffee shops. It's like we have this whole suite of products, right? And then we also, you know, are now in grocery stores. And with all of it, I've never thought about it as a marketing, like a food and drink brand or just a coffee brand. We've always looked at it as sort of a lifestyle brand. And our CEO David is you know, is the leading part of that, right? Like, he loves to make us a big part of culture, and he's the one who sort of enabled us to create these amazing collaborations and partnerships that we bring to life, and we create these amazing sort of ecosystems around everything we do, and we go to town, right? Everything from the photo shoot to the design to the event to the influencers. The packaging.
Yeah, and I think like you guys, the way like green is now is just like feels like it's a part of our day-to-day life.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, no,
that's what we want.
Because I have green at home, so when I'm home, that's the coffee that I use.
Yes.
But then if I'm not home and if I have to get a coffee, I look at my Google map to see if there
is there one nearby.
Yeah. And then like if there's an opportunity to have at my office, then I will have at my office.
Totally.
So because it's kind of like give you this emotional connection with the brand.
Yeah.
And this is it's not an easy achievement to make.
It's not. And I'm so glad to hear you say that, because that's kind of exactly what we're aiming for, right? I think we're aiming to, you know, coffee culture can be very small and insular, and especially, you know, third wave coffee connoisseurs. It was all, you know, it was a bit snobby, right? This idea of coffee to be true coffee and to be specialty coffee has to be made a certain way and served a certain way. And what we've tried to do at Grind, and certainly what we're trying to do in the future, is kind of democratize it a bit, right? And they make it that craft coffee for everyone, no matter what format you take it in, right? So whether you love getting it made by a barista at a cafe, or whether you want to use, you know, a pod machine at home, because that's a simpler way to make coffee, or if you love whole bean coffee and you've got a Chemex and you want to do a pour over at home, that's fine too. Or now that we do ready to drink iced coffee cans, it's like we've got tons of flavors. Again, there's no shame in that, right? I think even when we launched flavors a couple years ago, we thought, oh, like even the campaign that my team made was all about like enjoying your guilty pleasures, right? And then now we don't have to lean into guilty pleasures, because there's nothing to be guilty about.
No,
like,
nothing.
You know, especially Gen Z, like, have kind of pushed us in that direction too, right? Because they love flavors. They like, bring on the caramel mocha chocolate latte. Let's do this.
And then let's talk about the Gen Z, right? Because this is like another audience that is not as easy to attract.
Oh yeah.
And most important, to retain, right?
Yeah.
Because they are much more judgmental when they are consuming any type of brands, because you have to be sustainable.
Yep.
The ingredient has to be, you know, they look at, they know how to read packaging,
Yep.
ingredients.
Totally.
So it's just like it's a lot of a box that you have to tick in order to retain a Gen Z into your community, into your brand. Tell me about Dan and Grained.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's funny. I think we, definitely started as a brand that was like clearly targeted to millennials, right? Because back in 2011, and I think just by pure nature of us taking on sustainability as a massive pillar, right? So with the home compostable pods, all of our coffee being ethically sourced from sustainable farms, paying better than fair trade, we sort of had these things that are very these values that are very critical to Gen Z were already kind of baked into our offering and who we were as a brand. So it felt quite natural then, for us to kind of target that group, whereas I think other brands are kind of having to come up with secondary solutions and kind of like sub brands to sort of reach those
But
audiences.
You guys didn't have to do
and we
this.
didn't have to do that. We had it, which was great. And again, sort of that day to night lifestyle, like things like music being embedded, East London, all of it kind of does very much target a bit of youth culture. That said, what's interesting about Grind is that we have a very wide range of customers, right? It's not just Gen Z or like
you have the millennials, because this is how it started.
Totally. And even beyond that, right? Because there's people that just like really want a good cup of coffee, and youth culture still appeals to them, right? So there's these interesting groupings where it's not just Gen Z, it's not just millennials. There's also people who are Gen X or potentially even boomers, but they're still cool, they're still young, and they want a brand that reflects that. And so we do kind of appeal across the board, which is really fun for us to kind of play with.
And then like experiential is something that you guys, again, so as you said, like back in the days, you used to do the the live music, old events. Because now the brands are typing more and more into experience, but this is something that you guys has already been doing for a long time.
Oh yeah. I mean, and we're really lucky. It's so many brands now, especially, are leaning into coffee, right?
Yes.
Like luxury fashion brands are having little coffee pop-ups, and we're so lucky that we have. I think now we're 13 or 14 sites because we just opened a cafe in Manchester, but we have sites to do pop-ups in. Like we don't have to rent. We don't have to rent a corner shop. Like we have places that we can meet consumers in real life, right? That said, we've definitely branched out and done things that are a bit beyond the coffee shop or the cafe. We launched a collaboration with Clueless and took over Everyman or Screen of the Green cinema on Upper Street in Angel, and hosted a Clueless screening. Had like 150 influencers come. Didn't tell anyone to dress up, but like had all of these influencers come dressed to the nines, like dressed as Clueless characters, and served espresso martinis, etc. So like even when we think outside of our cafes and coffee shops, there's this energy and this excitement around what we're doing, and it's amazing when we get to kind of bring that to life and see our work happening in real time. There's nothing like it.
And I want to talk about partnerships. Look, how do you choose what the brand that is going to partner with? Because as you said, like coffee is having a big momentum.
It is.
For the brands that we work with,
yeah,
they always come to us with ideas of partnership, and coffee is always on the list, right?
Totally.
Always. It's just like, can we do a partnership with this coffee brand?
Yeah.
And then it's like coffee, ice cream.
Yeah.
It's just there's a few.
Yeah, matcha. Everyone wants matcha now.
Wants to do like
it's hot.
And I would assume that you guys probably are getting a lot of demand for potential partnerships. So how do you pick and choose the right brand to associate to green? Because at the end of the day, it's not about do many, it's about doing
what's
the
quality.
Ones what is quality, and then also the one that has a brand affinity, and then something that
100%
is related to your same ethos and your values.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely been a lesson for me. My team knows this better than anyone, because I think probably a year and a half ago, there were so many amazing opportunities, and you could see the good and the various good bits in each of them. So like I was saying yes too often, right? Because you're like, oh God, this amazing brand, they're going to put us on social. They've got an awesome audience. We can sample our products. We should go in and do a coffee cart in their store. Oh, we should go and do this. Oh, someone wants to come in and do a special edition drink in our cafes. Let's do it. So I was saying yes too often. And then, the joke I always make with my team now that I'm like, I'm in my year of no. I'm in my year of no. But it was really hard. It was hard, and we had to learn like what truly is important and what's truly going to move the needle. And I think it came from us doing a few partnerships where it didn't necessarily move the needle as much as we thought it would, and it allowed us to kind of be more discerning in who we work with. But the partnerships that have been the most amazing for us have been the big kind of product collabs that we've done.
Yeah,
So
I think the peanuts that you guys did.
we Peanuts now. We did Clueless. We did Hello Kitty. We've worked with artists.
I love the Hello
love
Kitty
Hello
one, but I also love
Kitty,
the peanuts too because it's
Yeah.
very nostalgic.
It's very nostalgic. I actually had I was wearing my peanut shirt, my Snoopy shirt. That was part of the collection yesterday. And a guy
nostalgic.
stopped me on the street to say, "Where's that shirt from?" And I was like, "Oh my God,
God.
you love it."
But that's the impact you want to have when you're doing a
it's
collab,
totally, it's
right?
totally. And you know what? Even though we're really excited about them, like up until the moment they launch, you're just like, hopefully everyone loves it as much as we do. But with Peanuts, it was their 75th. It is their 75th anniversary. So the timing is right. And for everything, we try to make sure there's like a cultural connection and that it's not random. So even with Clueless, it was, gosh, I think 30 years since it had launched, which is like aging me because I was in high school when it came out. So it was the 30th anniversary, right? Hello Kitty, it was her anniversary as well. And also Hello Kitty actually is not a cat, but a girl, which is shocking. She's a girl and she's from London, which not everyone knows.
I didn't know that.
Did not know that.
Okay.
So for all of them, we try to find these connections, and then we try to like build a whole world. So for Clueless, it was Clueless obviously is all about giving a makeover, and we're like, okay, we give coffee a makeover, and our amazing copywriter kind of came up with that sort of spin on what we do. And with Peanuts, it's he loves Snoopy loves having crazy summer adventures and kind of dreaming of a better world, and that is what we're trying to do at Grind in terms of like having coffee that's better for the planet and better for people. So it's been amazing to kind of take these really well-known cultural icons and then connect them to our product in a way that people respond to.
Incredible. And then you mentioned about influencers.
Yeah.
So what is like, again, we talk about social media, it's impossible to not talk about influencers, creators, talents.
Yeah.
Because they are like a brand that does not engage with community and influencer. There's no way back. This is
100%.
It's part of marketing now officially.
Yeah.
When I found agents like 12 years ago, influencer market was just like an add-on.
It was an add-on, and now it's like, especially in beauty, like, oh my God,
it's not an add-on anymore. It's what actually drives the brand forward.
It's the core.
It's the core. So how is the relationship with Grind and the influencers? So how do you engage with that?
Yeah.
And then what's the importance of the influencers into what you guys are doing?
Totally. I mean, I think like everyone, we're constantly sort of trying to figure out, okay, what really moves the needle, but also what brings like true cultural relevance to your brand. And I think, for us, obviously it's a business relationship, but we try to kind of like build friendships and true relationships with the people that we work with, so that it's not just one and done. Like, here's a check, thanks for that video, we'll put it on our Instagram, goodbye.
It was like that 12 years ago, but now it's just like, if you do this, it's not gonna work.
So like we return to many of the same influencers, to like, whether it's inviting to an event, whether it's gifting them, whether it again is doing like a paid content partnership with them. We try to make sure that we kind of extend those relationships where they make sense. We use influencers in a lot of our brand campaigns. So like for Hello Kitty, we kind of did this like London-esque spin on Sex and the City with the 4 friends. So we worked with 4 influencers, then using them to sort of like not just promote the partnership and the product, but also like they're more likely to post the campaign and additional content because they're featured in it. Like, they're literally our models. They're the people we're working with. So I think that, the best thing you could do with influencers is like really truly lean in and build that relationship, so that it's not just, a spreadsheet of 25 names
this is
sending them product.
Old-fashioned ways of engaging with talents. I think has to have the authenticity behind.
It has to make sense.
Everyone is talking about authenticity, but it's difficult to not use these words because I don't even know how to replace that word.
No, it's so real.
It's so real. So you have to make sure, because like back in the days, as you said, it was just like, okay, here's how much it costs, here's your fee, just go and do it.
Yeah, and you could edit them too, right?
Exactly.
Like, it used to be like, I don't like the way you talk about my brand here. Can you turn the tin this way, right?
We used to have like 10 the influencer briefings, like 10 pages.
Oh yeah, 10
The
pages.
do's,
Yeah,
the
Don't wear
don'ts.
green because that's our
Yes.
competitor's
Making
color.
sure your nails is not this. It's just like,
and it's not like that at
Yeah.
all now. And also, like, not even just influencer partnerships, but just like the content on Instagram has changed so dramatically,
much,
right?
yes.
Like back in the day, it was like everything was so polished, and like, and I can't, even though I think it's coming, flat lays are coming back now, but flat lays, like when I, 10 years ago, that was the thing where you're like, things organized neatly, and they have had a resurgence a bit, but like, this is the era of like the photo dump. People are posting like whatever they want and just like a giant like gallery of photos, and it's so different from like the way we used to create and share
But I
content.
think TikTok, actually, it's kind of played a huge part on.
Oh my God, yeah,
on-
TikTok for sure.
Yes, on kind of changing the way we see content. Because
it's
like
so lo-fi.
before TikTok, yes, everything was very polished on Instagram and said, but then TikTok came and said, no, it doesn't need to be like that. It has to be organic. You have to be who you are.
Yep.
And I think now, everyone is applying the same to Instagram, which is much more exciting for brands, and then even for consumer, like for us that is scrolling, looking for content.
100%.
But it's incredible that now brands, we are much more flexible and say, okay, this is the product. Just create. Just go with your own narrative, your own storytelling.
And you can test and learn. We actually did a video bit a couple of weeks ago. We were launching flavored pods, and a competitor whom I won't name came out with the exact same flavors as us a couple of months before. So we saw it, we were like, oh my God. And actually, I think it was our CEO who initially had the idea of like, oh, what if we do a video, or we actually just call it out and being like, damn, they beat us to it, And then it evolved into like this entire video and content concept where we wrote a script, we filmed it. Basically, the idea that there was a mole in the office that had revealed our flavors to this competitor, and we shot it like mockumentary style, like The Office, and basically filmed all of us being shocked and then finding out who in the office was the mole. And it was like ridiculous, and it was like a 2-minute video, and it was over the top and longer than anything else we've really done on social, and did amazing and went viral. And then the best compliment you can get is when other brands tell you, oh my God, we're all talking about this in the office. And a friend that worked at TikToks had said, oh, we're talking about this in our team meeting this week, And we were like, oh my God, we did it, But that was a risk, and it was testing and learning. And actually our CEO was like, I don't know if we should do this. And I was like, read the script. It's really funny. He read the script, laughed out loud, and was like, all right, let's do it. And he's actually in the video. So encourage people to check it out.
But because you're bringing the people behind it into the front of camera. And I think this is another thing that is nowadays, consumers, they want to say, what is behind that brand? Who's actually the creative there? Who is the CEO? How they're planning that? And then you kind of like bring that proximity
totally. And also that he was like acting in this video,
so cool. I
right?
wanted to see it.
Yes. It just shows that like everyone's kind of on board with the creative and just having fun and playing, right? And that's what you want on social.
Totally. And then looking back into your career, and then it's incredible that you, having going through so many different phases of marketing and the industry, how things are evolving, because again, you came back from magazines when magazine was our social media of nowadays.
Oh yeah,
right?
100%.
It's just like, working for Condé Nast. Oh my God, it was like, she works for Condé Nast.
Oh
It's like giving you like a red carpet for you to pass through. Not that we're not doing respect to all my Condé Nast friends, but it is different. And
it's so different.
It's different. So, and it's like, because you have this amazing trajectory where you've been part of the evolution, how do you see AI now coming into the evolution of the way we create, the way we plan our marketing strategy, the way we create the content? So how Green is looking into it, because there's another thing that we cannot run away from.
No, we can't run away from it. I think it's helpful in a few ways, and I think there's still there need to be some advancements before it maybe helps in other ways. I think it's obviously incredibly good at digesting a ton of information really fast, right? So from like terms of like the commercial implications and just sort of like the forecasting implications, it's incredible, right? Because you can input tons of data, right? You could look at, you know, what are the prices of various products in grocery and when were they on promotion. You can input all this information and it can really come back to you and be like, okay, here's what this brand is doing. This is what they're doing. Da, da, da. So it's great as like a research tool, first of all, which is amazing for us, right? I think number two, it can be really helpful in terms of like figuring out what it is that you want to write and how you want to organize it. I think I'm very happy, though, I will say that my background is writing and I grew up writing, right? And, you know, it's funny, like 20 years ago, I was the queen of, or maybe 15 years ago, I was the queen of people being like, I have to write a difficult email. Can you help me write it? So I was always sliding over to people's laptops and being like, I got it. This is what you want to say, right? But nowadays people do that to ChatGPT, right? Yeah. So I'm glad that I learned how to do that myself and became quite good at it. So I think it's helpful, but I think probably the thing that's really tricky is people who don't learn how to do it themselves and then strictly rely on ChatGPT, because I think ChatGPT gives you like a good kind of, it gives you something good to edit and kind of bounce off against.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to kind of do the work and figure out where it needs to go. And I think in terms of creativity, it's just not, it's not as good as creatives. It's just not in terms of like copy or writing or concepts. But I think you can kind of coach it through to get it to a better place. And that's interesting. So I think it's a time-saving tool, but I don't think it's the end-all be-all. And then in terms of like visually, I think unless you have someone who's incredibly well-trained in using the various like AI softwares, you're never going to get something that's like perfect, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, even I saw there was all this buzz on the news this week about people were looking at the photos from the wedding of Jeff Bezos and his wife, and they've started to spot like AI anomalies in the photos, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah, that like in one of the photos, the buttons go all the way down the back, but then in the other photo, there's no buttons. And in another one, there's like a safety pin. So like people are looking for this, right? They're analyzing photos, they're analyzing copy. I will say though, I hate when people say that if there's an M dash in your copy, that means it's ChatGPT, because I'm a big proponent of the M dash. I love the M dash. So I will never give it up. I will never give it up.
But everyone say, oh, it's ChatGPT, but like I always use this.
I've always used an M dash.
And now it's just saying to me that it's
100%. 100%. So yeah, we want to use it to save time and make us more efficient and do research, and it's a giant brain that's available to all of us to try to use. But I think creativity wise, it's not there yet. But and I think also, of course, we all have to think about what are the greater implications for the planet and for the world and using it, and what does this mean for us, not only philosophically, but also just in terms of the environment, right? There's a lot of unknowns.
There's a lot of unknowns, but I'm with you. I think, you know, AI is never going to, at least for now, it's never going to replace creative. Yeah. Because
it'll replace bad creatives.
Yes, exactly. Because in order for them to be like AI to be a good creator, you have to have a good creative making the prompting.
The prompting, 100%.
So the AI still needs the human.
It needs
in order to actually execute
100%.
So it's just like, but I see like, of course, AI will help a lot in terms of process and scalability. And as you said, but it's still to be seen. But it's important that brands looking at it, because we cannot ignore.
We can't ignore it. No, definitely not.
But you guys are ready into
for sure. And we actually participate in a kind of a partnership with Google, actually, where they came into certain businesses, and we were sort of the small business that they worked with, to sort of uptrain our staff on using AI. So not only in the HQ, but also people in the high street, right? So looking at things like, you know, labor and turnover and cost of goods and all of that stuff. So it's a powerful business school, and it's definitely one that we're keen to use, and like with everything Grind does, we want to be future forward versus, you know, trying to catch up.
So, talk about future. What is your vision for the future of marketing? Just not for Green, but overall.
For how? Everyone. Oh my God.
Everyone. Like, where do you see that we are evolving towards? All right, we talk about influencers, we talk about creators, we talk about experiential, we talk a lot about phygital, right?
Yep.
The combination of online, offline, and there's the AI. So if you, as an incredible marketeer that you are, if you have to say, I think we're going towards this direction, what you would say?
Yep. I think, gosh, it's probably a lot of the same that's already happening, but essentially I think that consumers are really, really smart now, right? So like we said, back in the day, I had my magazines and that was my social
Yes.
media, right? And if I wanted to learn about marketing, right, I had to either go to the library or go to a bookstore and buy a book on marketing, right? Now you've got tons of creators on marketing, on social media that are posting about marketing. They're dissecting campaigns. They're
Yeah.
incredible. Like you don't have to, of course, getting an MBA is invaluable, but like you can learn a lot about
A
marketing and
lot.
advertising through social media, and there's this real democratization of marketing and advertising and what culture is all about. And I think that's going to open up the floodgates for more and more people, more and more talented people, and hopefully people who don't necessarily come from privilege to bring really good ideas into the space. And that's what I'm really excited
that's
about,
awesome.
right? So it's not just the same people in the boardroom, and folks that maybe have a different education background, different cultural background, can bring those ideas forward. And I think it's going to make marketing and creative even better because it's not all coming from one point of view, which is unfortunately a bit one note sometimes.
This is so true. So
Yeah.
true. And then, like, do you guys play a lot within the sport industry? It's like,
Yeah, we've talked about it a bit. I think there's, I know F1 obviously is a big thing that's
Yeah.
happening right now. We haven't really done anything in that place. We've talked about like, do we look into like local football clubs? Is that something that's interesting? So we haven't played in that space too much, but I think it would be interesting, because the community aspect of it
yeah, no,
is
that's
very
because of like,
cool.
because I'm a community of green. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm asking, because I haven't seen you guys yet.
No, in sport.
In sports, and because I think it's green is such a like and a very
Yeah,
as
yeah,
we've been
yeah.
discussing, it's just very cultural.
I think that could be a
it
space
could
for
be a
sure.
space.
Yeah. We've
Yes.
talked about things like various community runs and run groups. Actually, we have done I spoke after we have done quite a few run groups, right?
Okay.
Hosted
The
at our
running
cafes and
clubs,
coffee
yes.
shops, and we give them, iced coffees to kind of fuel them before or after their journey. So I think it definitely is something that's in the back of our heads as a future moment.
That's good. Any partnership coming soon that you can say?
Woo!
Oh, no.
So we have 2 coming up in the next year. I can't say, but hopefully they'll be just as iconic as Peanuts.
That's exciting. Expansion for Green. What's the future expansion for the brand?
So we obviously just opened in Manchester. So
Yeah.
of course the dream would be to open in more cities and bring our experience to more places across the UK. Definitely looking at potentially opening up a few more sites in London. So watch this space. And then actually we will be opening up a kind of coffee stand in the Dubai airport, actually.
That's exciting.
And that will be in like August, September timing. So that's kind of our first grind outside of the UK. So it's really exciting.
Very
Yeah.
exciting. So here at the podcast, I love like, every time we have a guest, because we have so many, listeners that they are from the marketing industry, but also, people that are looking for inspiration guests.
Yeah.
So as you had an amazing career coming from Philadelphia and all the story
Yeah.
that you told us. So if you wanted to give if you would give an advice
Yeah.
about how to be risk-taking as
Yeah.
you have been, and
Yeah.
learnings that you have had, what you would say for someone that is just trying to start their career in marketing or thinking about moving countries or taking the
Yeah.
bold risk?
Yeah.
From your experience, what would be your advice?
Yeah, I mean, I know this it's what everyone says, but for me it really is be yourself, because you won't go wrong. You will end up in the wrong place if you pretend to be someone you're not, right? So I think I've worked in places where I was maybe a bit unusual or didn't necessarily like fit the mold, i.e. Condé Nast, right? Everyone had heels and was dressed a certain way, and I had tattoos and was wearing Converses, and it was, but it ended up working to my benefit because I stood out, right? Yeah, and obviously, there's a bit of privilege that comes with that. Not everyone can feel like they can be the full selves at work, but I really tried hard to constantly remain who I am at my core, which is a bit loud. I probably curse a bit too much. I don't dress a certain way, but it kept me from entering spaces that maybe weren't for me. You know what I mean? It's the same like if you're in a
100%.
relationship or dating, right? Like if you pretend to be someone else in the first couple dates, it's not going to work
It's
out.
not gonna work out
It's not
at
going to work
all.
out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think being myself is a huge part of my career success because I always ended up in the right places for me where I was able to thrive and
wonderful.
succeed. And in terms of like risk taking and moving to new countries, I mean, I think just go for it. But be prepared that when things go wrong, you have to be okay with like how hard it might be, you know? Because like I said, I've had those moments where I'm like, ooh, wow, I've just drained my savings account. I'm in another country and I somehow have to figure out where I'm going to live, what I'm going to do. And, you know, sometimes going through those hard bits make you realize that even if the worst happens, you're going to be okay.
It's just so true. And I
Yeah.
think the fact that, like, and I'm talking for myself, women, it's even more of a
Oh,
a
yeah.
challenge,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because it's still we're far away of, conquer on our space.
For
It's
sure.
like we
For
need to
sure.
admit that. It's as sad as it can be, it's still like it's a few
Oh, yeah.
few 30 years ahead of
Oh,
us
100%.
to
There's always
to
work
have
on that front.
to have the equality that
Yeah.
we don't have. So I think it's just like when I see a woman like you that made those bold decisions and took the risk and still was true to who you are and see where you are, it's
Yeah.
making me very proud and
Oh,
exciting
good.
because
I love
it's
that.
because I love to empower women, right? So I
Yeah,
think it's just like
100%. Same.
I'm Brazilian. I'm an immigrant as well, and I know
Yeah.
what it takes
Yep.
when you decided to actually conquer something that is completely out of your comfort
Totally.
zone. Because we
Totally.
don't have the same empowerment that men
No,
have,
no, we don't.
unfortunately.
No, we don't.
And
Yeah.
when we make it happen, we need to celebrate and
Oh,
then
yeah.
use
Gotta
that.
let people know.
Exactly. We need to tell people no and just go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, for
But
sure.
what an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for taking the
Thank you for
time.
having
And
me.
congratulations for everything that you guys
Yeah.
are doing at Green.
Thank
It's just like, as
you.
I said, I'm a big fan. And it's very emotional connected to me, to my family.
Love it.
So yes.
Love it.
And yes.
I'm gonna have to send you some coffee, please.
Yes, please.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Really,
Awesome.
really appreciate. So if you're not following us, please make sure you do on Amazon, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I see you guys on our next episode. And thank you so much.
Thank you
Stacey,
for having
again.
me.
Thank you.